There's just so much advice out there on leadership, it's really easy to get lost. But what if we just cut through all that noise and focused on what the evidence actually says? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're digging into the science behind building truly effective leaders. If you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by the latest leadership trend or buzzword, you are definitely not alone. I mean, the pressure to get better is always there, but the path forward can feel, well, kind of cluttered. So that's why we're going to try to shift our focus today, right? Let's move away from just stories and anecdotes and get to the hard evidence. What does the science say really moves the needle? Back in 2006, a report by Leithwood and his colleagues just perfectly captured the problem with this phrase, leadership by adjective. I mean, how brilliant is that? It's the perfect way to describe this endless sea of buzzwords we're all swimming in. They basically argued that most of these are just catchy slogans, not really tested, evidence-based theories. And that, of course, begs the most important question of all. In this blizzard of ideas, how in the world do we figure out what actually works? But here's the good news. The research really does give us some clear answers, and we're about to walk right through them. All right, so let's start by moving beyond those buzzwords. And first, why is getting this right so incredibly critical? Well, because great leadership isn't just some abstract idea, it has a real, measurable, and pretty profound impact on actual outcomes. According to that same Leithwood report, leadership accounts for about 5 to 7% of the variation in student learning across different schools. Now, I know what you might be thinking, 5 to 7%. That sounds kind of small. But get this, that's about a quarter of the entire impact that can be explained by all the school-level factors combined. So leadership isn't just another box to check, it's the catalyst. It's the thing that unlocks the potential of everything else. The research is crystal clear on this. There are literally 0 documented cases of a struggling school turning itself around without talented leadership at the helm. Okay, so if great leadership is the goal, how do we actually get there? Well, the evidence points, and it points hard, toward one core strategy, mentorship. But listen, this isn't about just any kind of mentoring. This is about the science of it. So let's start here. The term best practice gets thrown around all the time, right? But what does it actually mean? As researchers Brondek and Searby pointed out in 2013, the definitions are all over the map, making it really hard to pin down what truly qualifies. So we need a clear scientific standard. And the framework they came up with is just beautifully simple, but it's also incredibly rigorous. For something to be a true best practice, it has to pass 3 tests. First, it has to be effective in the real world, actually doable. Second, it needs to be empirically proven through real research. And third, it has to actually achieve what it says it's going to do. And this quote right here, this is the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. It means no more guesswork, no more just relying on what feels right. From here on out, we're focusing only on strategies that are tested, proven, and totally purposeful. All right, so with that gold standard in our back pocket, we can really get into the how. What are the essential evidence-backed parts of a mentoring program that really, truly works? Well, when you look at the research across all sorts of fields, education, medicine, business, it points to a pretty clear blueprint. Success is not an accident. It needs intentional matching based on goals and personality, a structured design with clear milestones, formal training for the mentors themselves, constant feedback and evaluation, and finally, the whole thing has to be woven into the organization's bigger strategy. But underneath all of those pieces, holding it all together, is one absolutely non-negotiable foundation: psychological safety. And this isn't just a nice-to-have, folks. It's the essential ingredient. Without a safe, inclusive space where people feel they can be vulnerable, ask the tough questions, and even risk failure, well, real growth is just about impossible. And that idea of safety leads us directly to training. Because, a lot of organizations just assume that if you're a good performer, you'll automatically be a good mentor. But the evidence, it just doesn't back that up. A 2018 study makes this powerful argument. Training your mentors shouldn't be some optional add-on. It has to be a routine, non-negotiable part of the program. Now, this is where things get really interesting, because the very idea of what mentoring is has evolved. It's no longer just about one wise senior leader guiding a junior employee. The modern way of thinking is so much more dynamic and, well, sophisticated. I mean, the shift is pretty profound. We're moving away from that rigid, one-way street of knowledge transfer to something that's reciprocal, where both people are learning. And instead of just one single mentor, the modern approach is a whole network, what researcher Carol Mullen calls a mentoring mosaic, where you draw on a whole constellation of different people for different needs. This quote from a 2015 study, man, it just nails the whole spirit of this modern approach. But notice what it says. Hold the ladder, not just show them the ladder. That is way more than just giving advice. It implies an active responsibility to help other people climb up too. And that is the essence of sponsorship. And sponsorship is a really specific, critical part of modern mentorship. It's so much more than just advising. A sponsor is an active advocate. They're someone who uses their own influence to create real opportunities for you. They don't just give you advice about the big meeting, they get you a seat at the table. Okay, so this is where we bring all the pieces together, because a single most powerful strategy isn't just great mentoring on its own or great leadership training on its own. It's the integration of the two. Think about this gold standard model as having two main pillars. On one side, you have all the best practices of mentoring we've talked about, the intentional matching, the psychological safety, the sponsorship. And on the other side, you have the best practices from leadership training, things like real-world simulations and 360-degree feedback. The real magic happens when you combine them. And the results of this integrated model, they're pretty compelling. Across all sorts of sectors, from healthcare to education, programs that embed mentoring right inside a formal leadership development journey, they show superior, measurable outcomes in retention, promotion rates, employee well-being, and even innovation. So this all leaves us with one final and I think really crucial question. Looking at all this evidence, you have to ask yourself, is your organization just training managers to keep the status quo, or is it truly building leaders by creating these structured, safe, and integrated systems of mentorship that are designed to drive real, meaningful growth? The answer to that question makes all the difference.